In this video, you will learn how to enable Paya ACH for your merchants. To offer Paya ACH to your merchants, your ISO account needs to have ACH enabled. Contact support at dejavusystems.com for activation. For a better understanding, let's divide this video into 4 different sections. So let's get started. To complete a Paya ACH transaction, the merchant needs the customer's consent to authorize the payment. There are 4 payment modes in Paya ACH. A web terminal ID transaction works in send payment link and it does not require the consent of the customer since the customer will be making the transaction. However, the web ID will be used to track the customer's IP address to prevent fraud. Terminal ID is a telephone-initiated transaction that works in Cloud POS under Pay Now, where the merchant must call the customer during the transaction to obtain the customer's consent. A PPD terminal ID and CCD terminal ID transaction also work in Pay Now, but the merchant must have written consent from the customer authorizing them to conduct a transaction. Enabling Paya ACH involves a 2-step process. The first step requires you to enable it for your merchants during the onboarding process or later. After that, you need to enable ACH at the TPN level. So, let's get started. To do this, log into the PaaS portal. Click on the Merchants tab. Search for the merchant or merchant store from the search box at the top. Then, click on Edit Store. Here, you can enable ACH transactions. You can also enable this when onboarding a new merchant. Next, simply click on Paya ACH in the provided box. Depending on the specific needs of the merchant, you would have already set up a Paya account. Once the setup is complete, you'll receive a web ID, tel ID, PPD, and CCD. Enter all of those IDs in their respective fields here. Don't forget to click Save for the changes to take effect. Now that we have enabled Paya ACH for the merchant, we need to enable Paya ACH at the TPN level. The ACH option will appear in the Cloud POS screen for the merchant, only if it is enabled at the TPN level. To do this, go to Steam. Then, Edit Parameters. Here, you need to search and select the TPN for which you wish to enable ACH. Click on Edit Parameter. Then, navigate to the Transactions tab. Under Card Type, enable ACH. Don't forget to click Save for the changes to take effect. Now, let's learn how to make a Cloud POS sale transaction with Paya ACH. Select Cloud POS, then Payments. Paya ACH is available for Pay Now transaction and Send Payment Link. We'll demonstrate how to make a transaction using both of them. So let's start with a Pay Now transaction. First, select the Cloud POS TPN from the drop-down menu. Then, make sure you have selected these options. Enter the amount, and choose ACH. Customer authorization is essential for Paya ACH. So, there are 2 types of customer authorization. The first option is used when the merchant has to make a telephone-initiated transaction. This message informs the merchant that they must have enabled call recording on their phone to obtain verbal consent from the customer, allowing the merchant to proceed with the telephone-initiated transaction. PaaS Pays also accepts validated ACH payments. The validation criteria will change depending on the merchant's requirements. For example, it can be as simple as a routing number or account number. And even something intricate, such as the driver's license number or SSN. The ACH validation requirements will vary depending on the tel ID set up in the Paya portal. So, make sure the tel ID you enter matches the merchant's requirements. It's crucial to note that, unless the tel ID is entered during Paya configuration, the merchant won't be able to access this Pay Now transaction. Now, enter the required fields. And click Process to complete the transaction. The second option is used in a prearranged payment and deposit entry. This means the merchant must have obtained signed paperwork from the customer that authorizes the merchant to conduct a transaction. If you choose PPD as the SEC code, the first name and last name of the customer become mandatory to complete the transaction. This is because PPD is used in customer-to-business transactions. However, if you choose CCD as the SEC code, the company name becomes mandatory. This is because CCD is used in business-to-business transactions. It's crucial to note that, unless the PPD or CCD is entered during Paya configuration, the merchant won't be able to access this Pay Now transaction. Now, enter the required fields. Then, click Process to complete the transaction. After completing the transaction, you can head to the Transactions tab to view them in a single place. Search for the TPN. Then, click on the filter icon. Choose Alternate Payments. Then, click Search. A Paya ACH transaction can be easily identified using this signature. If you wish to void or refund a transaction, click on Void. Then, click here. Now, if you do this before midnight in Mountain Time Zone, on the day the transaction was made, it will be processed as void. However, if you do this after midnight, the transaction will be processed as a refund. You can also view Paya ACH transactions from an open batch. To do this, go to Batches. Click on View Batch. Scroll down and you'll find the Paya ACH transactions clearly highlighted here. Now, let's see how to send a payment link using Paya ACH. Before we start, it's crucial to note that, unless the web ID is entered during Paya configuration, the merchant won't be able to access this transaction. To send a payment link, make sure you have selected these options. Next, enter the amount. And enter the customer's phone number or email. Choose the link expiration time. Enter a transaction reference number. You can also add a description of the transaction. Once you're done, click Send Payment Link. When the customer opens the link they received, they can choose ACH from the payment type. Please note that these fields may vary depending on the web ID you set up in the Paya portal. Now, the customer can enter the details in their respective fields. Then, click here to complete the transaction. After completing the transaction, you can view the payment status in the Invoice tab. The payment status will be visible right here along with the transaction details. Please note that Paya ACH is available for payment devices and tap to pay on iPhone with iPaaS Go. Similar to the previous transaction, you can send a payment link to the customer using either of these options, and the customer can select Paya ACH as the payment type to complete the transaction. In addition, Paya ACH is available on our hosted payment page and generic hosted payment page. Thanks for watching.